Awake, come to light, come to self, stir, spring, flower into a greater life, a freer life now, into all your wholeness, fullness, all your glorious fruitfulness. Welcome to each of you leaning in from places of all kinds, from different cities, towns, countries, and continents, listening in to the 20th Floating Poetry broadcast in this weekly series. Actually, an encore broadcast since earlier this evening on our scheduled program. There were technical issues that completely ruined the audio signal, so I decided a little bit later this evening now to give us another live one. So some of you are back and listening in. I'm delighted, and hopefully the rest of you who couldn't quite hear what was happening, you will listen in at some other point on the replay. So, coming again to you live right now from the end of summer shores of Rhode Island, by the sea, the sentient sea. This is your poet and poetorialist Colin Goedecke. Tonight, inviting you to enter places and questions of awakening, what it means to be truly greatly awake to yourself, your life, your humanity, to the natural world around you, and how remarkable the experience can be. The more conscious we are, the more fully we awaken, open, and deepen our inner and outer senses. I thought we'd begin with some meta questions and a handful of flashes and fountains of fuller consciousness you might welcome, might appreciate from various awakened spirits I summoned up for us. So, awakening, what does it mean to you? What thoughts and feelings does it bring up inside you, even now? How awake are you, or more awake, more conscious would you like to be? You might quietly ask yourself some beautiful questions about your essence, how and how much you feel it, express it, embody it, about your presence, how present you actually are in your days, your relationships, about your purpose in the world if you're really seeking or living it, about your connectedness with your humanity, with all humanity, with the natural world, with your inner senses, more. Or ask other questions, any ones that may lead you toward greater desired consciousness, sentience, aliveness, radiance, a state of what I call not wholeness, but wholefulness. So among the people I plucked forth tonight, some different thinkers and characters from present and past, was a British psychoanalyst and writer. Her name was Marion Milner. In the 1930s, she kept a journal for some years. So it's an experiment of reflection and our theme last week, but it led her to some interesting discoveries, and she wrote about her younger self. And looking back on that point, she said, I had felt my life to be of a dull, dead-level mediocrity, with the sense of real and vital things going on round the corner, out in the streets or in other people's lives, for I had taken the surface ripples for all there was, when actually happenings of vital importance to me had been going on, not somewhere away from me, but just underneath the calm surface of my own mind. Though some of these discoveries were not entirely pleasant, bringing with them echoes of terror and despair, at least they gave me a sense of being alive. By keeping a diary of what made me happy, I had discovered that happiness came when I was most widely aware. So I'd finally come to the conclusion that my task was to become more and more aware, more and more understanding, with an understanding that was not at all the same thing as intellectual comprehension. There was an extraordinary education reformer back in time, Elizabeth Palmer Peabody, if anybody knows of her. She was amazing. In her 90 years, she founded the first English language kindergarten in America, translated the first American edition of Buddhist scripture, launched the country's first foreign language bookstore and circulating library, coined the term transcendentalism to define that current sweeping New England, and introduced the very king and queen of that movement. She was the epitome of intellectual restlessness and creative self-reinvention. And she said, the perilous time for the most highly gifted is not youth. The holy sensibilities of genius, for all the sensibilities of genius are holy, keep their possessor essentially unhurt as long as animal spirits and the idea of being young last. But the perilous season is middle age, when a false wisdom tempts them to doubt the divine origin of the dreams of their youth, when the world comes to them, not with the song of the siren, against which all books warn us, but as a wise old man counseling acquiescence in what is below them. Amazing woman. Viktor Frankl, his empowering book, Yes to Life, you might want to dip into that. His meditations on moving beyond optimism and pessimism to find the deepest source of meaning. He wrote in there, should I perhaps try to explain for you with some hackneyed phrase how and why experiencing beauty can make life meaningful? I prefer to confine myself to the following thought experiment. Imagine you're sitting in a concert hall and listening to your favorite symphony, and your favorite bars of the symphony resound in your ears, and you're so moved by the music that it sends shivers down your spine. And now imagine that it would be possible, something that is psychologically so impossible, for someone to ask you in this moment whether your life has meaning. I believe you would agree with me if I declared that in this case, you would only be able to give one answer, and it would go something like, quote, it would have been worth it to have lived for this moment alone. Viktor Frankl. How about Hermann Hesse of Siddhartha Note, who wrote, a stretch of sky, a garden wall overhung by green branches, a strong horse, a handsome dog, a group of children, a beautiful face. Why should we be willing to be robbed of all this? Whoever has acquired the knack can, in the space of a block, see precious things without losing a minute's time. All things have their vivid aspects, even the uninteresting or ugly. One must only want to see. And with seeing come cheerfulness and love and poesy. The man who for the first time picks a small flower so that he can have it near him while he works has taken a step toward joy in his life. And I know that part of awakening is having a lot more joy in our lives. Everything else, but definitely joy. He also went on to say around that most men, the herd, have never tasted solitude. They leave father and mother, but only to crawl to a wife and quietly succumb to new warmth and new ties. They are never alone. They never commune with themselves. And communing, my friends, is with yourself, very, very important thing to do. However, in small doses or large, you are able to. Extremely important. It's very nourishing. It leads us to definitely more consciousness and deepening and expanding. So always encouraging that. Then there's Oliver Sacks, who said, to be ourselves, we must have ourselves, possess, if need be, repossess our life stories. We must recollect ourselves, recollect the inner drama, the narrative of ourselves. A man needs such a narrative, a continuous inner narrative, to maintain his identity, his self. Patti Smith, most of us would know, seek out what magnifies your spirit. Who and what magnifies your spirit? Wow, that says a lot in a breath. Let's do that. Let's seek out ever more of those. And then one more thought before a few poems for us tonight is from the excellent brainpickings.org site. Incredible, always illuminating. And they said of all the 13 greatest things they learned over all the years of doing what they're doing, they had one was on presence, which is so crucial to awakening. Presence is far more intricate and rewarding in art than productivity. In a culture that measures our worth as human beings by our efficiency, our earnings, our ability to perform this or that, the cult of productivity has its place, but worshiping at its altar daily robs us of the very capacity for joy and wonder that makes life worth living. I agree with that. And for, as Annie Dillard put it, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. I'd like us to spend them as wide awake, as greatly conscious, as fully human as we can. So, I think maybe we start with poems about, how about just literally awaking, where we can open wider to a day, the day, and wonderfully. This was written back on the South Fork of Long Island in Bridgehampton some summers back. It's called Rising to Now. Imagine half waking in a country bed, your eyelids filling with sun, your ears filling with fore and background notes of first morning birds tuning in the trees, your skin sensing a stir of ocean-washed air as you bring yourself into being. Rising to now. Or awakening to all the beauty all around us, natural and man-made, and when it's made with care and attention and intention and great thoughtfulness, it's all beautiful. The morning is blushing, with washes of rose over sky blue, over snow-white rooftops, over faces like mine waking to the blushing beauty of the day. Part of my experience of awakening includes being far more engaged with everything we do, not just how we are, but the things we do. They can be simple things, or cooking, for example. With me, I love being a chef, among other things, and eating. So how we cook and eat can be a place of awakening, and bringing, in my case, poetry to food and the making of food and serving of food and sharing. Always cooking with love. So, we all know how much better things taste when they're made with that ingredient. I cook with my heart is this poem. I cook with my heart. On the plate, in the pan, with bright blue eyes and blue heat, through all seasons, all seasonings, around the menu and mise en scène, mise en place, over the wine of listening and nourishing, I will pour into each spirit at the table. Through the poetry I will pair with dessert. Inside each eyeful and mouthful of love I will make, and we will taste and savor together. And then there's so much awakened beingness we can bring to our relationships, especially our most intimate relationships, our partnerships. Those of us who have partners or will have partners. Loving another is this piece and thought, is a heart form, a mind and body form, also an art form, maybe the highest or purest, one to glean, enter, actively apprentice, learn to master, instead of breezing, fumbling, or assuming through it. After decades living and significantly loving others, however truly, however beautifully, it's now ringingly clear how some parts come naturally, while the wholeness, the healthiness, fruitfulness, and resilience of it come only when it's most consciously practiced, when we're not just present but presence, when we're not simply but daily and deeply engaged, entirely seeing, listening, leaning into, and communing with another, understanding and nurturing another through all their joys and mysteries through all their sufferings and growings. Loving another, definitely an art. The more awakening, the more amazing. I've learned over life experiences I've had to feel far more of not only myself, but also others, and the richness of every encounter. And I had a great love, and this was back in Berlin. We were traveling, and this was my holding that person to me and to each other, and feeling everything that was in them, or at least, significant things that of course I knew, but I felt them because I was awake and I was very in tune. And this is called holding a lifetime. I hold a lifetime of joys and sorrows, flesh and blood, childhood and children, sleeping and waking, dreams, desires, body and soul in my arms. So we think of what we can hold to us, around us, clasped to our breasts, our souls, when we're that conscious, when we're that connected, when we're that expanded and sensing a lot. Then there's being greatly awake to the natural world, ever moving, joyful, resonating, as many of us would surely know, and can keep going there and go there even more. As a poet, for me, yes, but also as a being. So we don't have to be an artist to deeply feel the natural world and connect with it and honor it, and let it speak to us. Can you taste the green? Is this piece from late August, some years back. Can you taste the green on the tongue of your nose? The greens of a northeast summer, sultry summer day. The scents of sweet grasses, languid trees, and curling vines, fanning fronds and sunning fields, all lushing, infusing the air as you slowly move, taste, breathe through their sensuously redolent aromas. There's an old Native American elder story that I wanted to share with you tonight that seems very fitting to me, and it's called Lost. Stand still. The trees ahead and the bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. Beautiful. We can also relate more, I believe, to other sentient creatures. We're certainly not alone in being sentient. And I've talked on other times about how perfectly in balance animals in the wild are. They're perfectly only what they are, and they keep their world in balance. And of course, we're the ones who can upset all that, and within ourselves too. So I believe that the more awakened we are, the more alive, the more sentient we actually are, more in balance with ourselves, with our fellow man and women and everyone else in the humanity, and with the natural world. It definitely follows. Worth the experiment. So this poem, honoring that, is Robin, how you spread your wings. How you spread your soft wings, your bright song and colors through the open air. How you spring freely into each waking day, each season with such eagerness of being. How you feel the good earth underfoot greet you, uphold you wherever you go, wherever you land. So, like the robin, let's spread our wings and fly. We can fly far more and more brightly and songfully, all of us, each of us. The more awakened we are, the more we can feel and flow and expand and receive, just give. So this poem speaks to that. First the awakening, then the seeing, then the freeing, then the asking, inviting, allowing, and letting in, and then the receiving. I was musing on a tarot card that I drew. I had an experiment I did where I would draw tarot cards interested in what they might reveal, and decided maybe whatever a poem might come around those pullings of cards. And back in April, a few years back, was pulling the High Priestess card, and this poem flew out of me, seeing into the mystery, the tapestry of wonders and answers lying unseen by others below the surface of life, behind the accepted realms of assumed reality. Silence, stillness, and supreme awareness are the way into this world where vast wisdoms reside. They're there for us to touch into, the more awake and awakened we can be. So as we come toward the last bit of our time, for now, until another time, I know that we can actively, eagerly seek experiences that open us more, that enrich us, that touch us in essential ways. So this is a question, invitation of a kind for you. It's called, When Was the Last Time? You were deeply seen. You were deeply heard. You were deeply held. You were deeply kissed. Well then, we can be ever more astonished, more freely astonished. We can astonish ourselves the more awakened we become, the more hopefulness we enter into. And I debuted sometime a couple of years ago a one show of others that I've been doing, experiential shows, immersive shows, interactive of its kind, live, theatrical type shows. This one was a show of theater on paper where characters came to life through story poems and my performing. And it was called, and is called, Behind the Curtain. And hopefully after the pandemic ends, I can continue touring that around the country. I'm keen to do that, was planning on that. It's called The Astonished Man. He is the astonished man. There's an incredible image of him, which I'm happy to share with anybody who asks me. I can send that along to you. The astonished man. Perhaps like Blaise Cendrar's L'Homme Foudroyé, arrested by the revelations of the moment, a glinting sword of sun or moonlight falling across the ocean to the shore at his feet, the intoxicating musk of a forest after rain, the bare nape of a lover's neck, or the song of a robin, wild bright with spring, until each day becomes a great and endless stream of astonishments, and our man makes it his mission to be still and behold more often than he bestirs and bypasses, no longer withholds his attention and connection to the extraordinary. Let's be astonished men and women. It's a wonderful state to encounter, being astonished. So next to last, for now, this was written for a marvelous friend, Tom Orzo, on his 69th birthday 2 years ago. And this is about celebrating all the awakenings we have had, are having in our lives, and what we can invite in beyond that. It's called Oh Yes. What you say when the universe offers you another eclair or espresso, kiss or centavo. When you wake to another day alive, in good health and heart on earth. When you realize every moment as it arrives, with or without fanfare, flower petals, confetti, is brimming with serendipity, overspilling fountain-like with all possibility. Oh yes. And last, before we wink off, is to say, I know we can, I have, do, we can, if we haven't already, really can feel everything, the whole spectrum of feelings, all at the same time in a way, large and small. It's possible. And for that, to that, when you feel everything is this last piece for us for now. When you feel everything, nothing is ever the same again. The very molecules inside and around you alter forever. When you feel selectively or not at all, little changes, maybe a bit of scenery. I know because I've lived both ways, feeling immensely and freely now, feeling narrowly and tightly then, when less wise in the ways of life and myself. To feel all is not for the faint of heart, but for those ready and willing to engage. Such a full orchestra of feeling is both welcome and liberating, worth hearing, worth experiencing, without allowing all the chords, all the notes and passages. How can the symphony of everything within you really play, greatly resound? Thank you again for leaning in and in these still and so challenging times, helping support these programs and poetic arts with welcome donations. Contributions are easily made by PayPal and Venmo and directly through my site. I encourage your good thoughts and questions and hearing how these broadcasts resonate. Most of all, I'm glad for your enthusiasm and for the word you ripple out of these poetic offerings. Replays of the broadcasts are online to hear another time. I hope you'll lean in again. Until then, good days ahead, more fully, joyfully awakened days, and good spirits.